Hi, shalom, friends. Um, Purim is a very, very festive and happy Jewish holiday, and it's a terrific day. A lot of joy, a lot of feasting, a lot of community. There's masquerades and masks, and just about everything you would imagine that a holiday should be is found in Purim. But there are also remarkable differences that Purim as a Jewish holiday has in contrast to all the other Jewish holidays. For example, if you look at Passover, which is, we could call in italics, the mother of all Jewish holidays. After all, we leave Egypt and God makes us his people. What we have over here is a pattern. There's a wicked king, his name is Pharaoh. He interferes with freedom, he interferes with the Jewish people fulfilling their destiny, and therefore, essentially, he's humbled and punished. And then the Jewish people are freed. And that pattern of a wicked tyrant that's punished and humiliated and finally brought to his knees to acknowledge the supreme power of the Almighty seems to run through many of our holidays. So, for example, jumping essentially to the last holiday in Jewish history as a nation, which is the story of Hanukkah, same idea. We have a wicked king. He oppresses the Jewish people, and the Jewish people fight the tyrants, and they win. But when we come to the story of Purim, something very unusual takes place over here. Yes, there is a very bad guy. That's the wicked Haman. But essentially, the wicked Haman cannot have his way unless he has the acquiescence of the king. And his name is Ahasuerus. He's the mighty king of the Persian Empire. Essentially empowers Haman to do his bidding. However, without the king's signet ring, Haman cannot do anything. Indeed, even after Haman is destroyed, the decree against the Jewish people remain. So what happens? Queen Esther appears in front of the king, Ahasuerus, her husband, a second time, asking the king to essentially retract his first decree. In other words, what we're asking is that the king become a friend. And indeed, in the story of Purim, that's what happens. So, let's freeze the frame for a moment. The same king who in the past had written a decree talking about how the Jewish people should be destroyed, that very same king is now writing a writ where he's canceling it by allowing the Jewish people to defend themselves. Plus, he's elevating Mordechai to be a very high position of an advisor, and he's openly proud of his Queen Esther. So, let's summarize. Purim is unique in Jewish holidays because the enemy turns into a friend and a supporter. That's nice. Not always do the bad people have to be destroyed. It's wonderful when bad people turn into good people. I won't go so far as to say that the king was a friend and a good person, but I will go so far as to say that he was a patron and a supporter and was somewhat fair to his people. Let me bring this down to another story that happened a little bit more than 1,000 years ago, and this too is connected to Purim. Purim is remarkable because it has a Jewish queen. And we really don't know of that many other cases where a mighty empire and a powerful pontiff has a Jewish queen, especially if she's actually observant and proud of her background. But that Jews should be advisors to the kings, we have already from biblical times Joseph, who was the advisor and the viceroy of Egypt, of the famous Pharaoh. So a little bit more than 1,000 years ago, there lived a man whose name was Rabbi Hanagid, and he was the prime minister or the grand vizier of the king of Granada, who was a Muslim king. And you may Google this if you'd like. It was in the Berber Empire, and he was the king of Granada, and essentially his Jewish advisor, and was not only an advisor, he was the head of the army. He led the soldiers. He was a statesman and a diplomat, and he was essentially the power behind the throne. The king admired him greatly. As the story goes, once the king put him on his royal coach and they went for a drive. And as they were passing through one of the crowded neighborhoods, people were shouting, "Long live the king," and his advisor. And the king overheard one Arab storekeeper say, "Long live the king, but why does he have an infidel? Cursed is the infidel." Now, this man obviously thought that his voice would be drowned out by the many other voices that were crying out, but the king overheard it. He became furious. He stopped the carriage, sent his soldiers to bring this Arab man before him, and he said, "How dare you insult my advisor? You insult me." And he turned to Rabbi Shmuel Hanagid, and he said, "He deserves a punishment. I will leave you to choose the punishment." Reb Shmuel felt very, very uncomfortable. He was at heart a religious man who was very humble, and really the fact that he had enemies or detractors did not at all bother him. But if he were to just simply poo-poo it, in other words, to make it as if it's insignificant, it would be an insult to the king. So he looked in amazement at the king and he said, "Your Majesty, you're the supreme ruler." He said, "Fine, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. Make sure you cut out his tongue." And the soldiers imprisoned the man. After the promenade was over, Reb Shmuel found out where he was being held, and he came to visit him. Of course, as soon as he came to visit him, the man fell on his knees and cried bitterly how stupid, how foolish, how he was, and it's not really him, it was the way he was brought up to be an anti-Semite against the infidels. Please, he can't live without a tongue, and his family will suffer, and he went to pieces. Reb Shmuel was touched, found out where the man's family lived, and found out that they lived in poverty. He actually sent them money, changed their economic situation, and began to have some heart-to-heart talks with this Arab storekeeper, giving him good advice and encouraging him. And of course, not only was he not being punished, but to a certain extent, he was singled out to receive the kindness and compassion of the Grand Vizier. Weeks passed, and once again the king and his advisor are on the coach, and they're going down this crowded street, and everyone is shouting, "Long live His Majesty the King!" And the highest voice of all was the voice of this former Arab, who said, "Long live the king, and long live his advisor." The king recognized the voice, again stopped, and had his soldiers bring him over. And when he saw his face, he recognized him. And in surprise, he said to Reb Shmuel, "I gave you a command to cut out his tongue." To which Reb Shmuel replied, "Your Majesty, I did. I just gave him a new one." And that, my friend, is what I want to leave with you. When someone says cut out your tongue, you don't have to cut out the tongue. You just have to have him grow a better one, a new and improved. So Reb Shmuel did something very wise. He didn't destroy his enemy. He transformed an enemy into a friend and an admirer. And I believe that perhaps this too is one of the many lessons of Purim. You don't have to have the king destroyed like Haman. You could have the king now understand the value of his beautiful wife Esther and of her people that she represents. I wish you all a very happy Purim, and may all of the negativity that you might encounter in your life, may they all be transformed to light and joy. Shalom.